Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Welcome back to the Diversity in Humanity Virtual Summit. I am your host, Kayleigh O'Keefe, and I could not be more excited to be joined by best-selling author Claudia Cauterucci. Claudia, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you, Kayleigh O'Keefe.
Now, I know you super well, but for those who do not know you, Claudia is a practicing licensed psychotherapist, has been doing that for over 20 years, is the creator of Dynamic Meditation. She is the author of the forthcoming book, Humanity 101, the best-selling author in this book. And I'm also so proud to say a very dear friend of mine. Claudia, I'm so grateful that you've been on this journey, that you shared your story, and that we get to just have fun and connect and really go deep into your story and why it felt so important to share today. So I can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Yes. But first, I want to thank you for what you're doing in the world. I really, really do, Kayleigh. We can't start this without thanking you for the spaces you're providing, for people to find their voice, for people to gather around a table and have these conversations. Like, I just have so much respect. It feels so value aligned in what I'm trying to do in my own space, but also to join you in what we're trying to do for this new planetary revamp. And it's just been amazing to be a part of this journey with you. So yes, that has to come first.
Thank you. I will receive that and feel that.
Yes, for sure, Kayleigh.
Thank you. Now, Claudia, your chapter is called Diversity 101, A Colorful Journey Home, which is why, for those of you who've been following us this morning, I decided I needed to add some color to the wardrobe. I was wearing beige all morning, Claudia, and I was like, wait a second. So I put on some red, and I love that we're kind of matching now.
Yes, a little bit. Yes, that was telepathic.
Now, what I loved about your chapter, Claudia, is that you draw from so many sources, your personal experience, the Bible, Netflix, philosophy, like you go everywhere. And I really feel like it speaks to who you are as a person. And I just wanted to get a feel for what your experience was like writing your chapter before we dig into some of the really big and important themes that you raise in it.
Yes. Oh, it was such an amazing experience because, I mean, the challenge was exactly that. Like, how do we come at this incredible multi-layered conversation without all the layers, right? It just isn't a simple topic to address. And you were so encouraging in being like, you know what? Address it with all your topics, which is how I work with people, how I work with myself, how I work with seeing humanity is multidimensionally from several aspects on a spectrum. I like to tackle our mind, our body, our spirit, our current times, our ancestral times, our history, which is why I love philosophy. Just this idea of talking about ourselves, about you, about a topic multidimensionally. So that was really, really fun. And thank you for giving me the green light to do that, because it really represents me.
Well, it does, because you just have this unique ability to like constantly zoom in and zoom out, and like the micro is the macro. And I want to talk about both things in this discussion, and starting with the zooming in, because you write in your chapter, one of your headers, which I just love so much, is childhood memories, my organic adoration of diversity. So bring us back into some of those moments that you feel did really shape you and your adoration of diversity.
Yes, yes. Well, so much of what I've discovered over time, just working clinically, but always like everything that I teach or how I work, is really about my own journey, and that whole journey of coming home, of coming back to the self, and noticing the ways that we're organically, innately, a priori, who were we without the layers of cultural constructs, without the layers of what our families wanted us to be? Who were we? When did we start having these instincts, these urges for what we adored? And that's really what I wanted to highlight, is these instinctual reactions to diversity that I had, that were a part of me without anyone telling me. And I give examples, these stories in the book, like the movie Enter the Dragon. And I've had multiple experiences like that, where I just feel like, this is me. This is what I love. This is what sets me on fire, for sure.
And I loved seeing, you shared a newsletter and your baby picture with us of, little Claudia, who comes from such a multicultural background, your origin story. Like, bring us back to that place too, of kind of where you come from.
Yes, and you know this, Kayleigh, on the side, but that I've been a little closeted about that, a little closeted about where I come from, my background, because it is so diverse. And it does raise a lot of questions when I describe it. For example, when I describe that I was born in a missionary hospital in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So immediately it's like, why, right? Why were you born in a
doing there? Yeah.
Exactly. And no one would expect that. But my dad was a Peace Corps volunteer who met my mom in Colombia, where he did his Peace Corps tour. They fell madly in love. And then this was during the 60s. So USAID, which was a burgeoning new American government entity, sent him, he got a job with them and sent him to Laos during the Vietnam War. So that was an interesting beginning of my story, because here's my mom, Colombian, right, who barely spoke English, and she is in Laos in Southeast Asia. And so is my dad. And Kayleigh, they were in their 20s. Yeah. Imagine us in our 20s, right, during the Vietnam War. And so where we lived, there were no hospitals. And so the idea was to cross the Mekong River, and both my brother and I were born in Thailand for that reason. And we stayed there. So our world, our existence, our family existence is all about diversity, being global citizens. From, my dad's Italian, my mom's Colombian, and just living in different countries. And so my exposure to diversity seemed normal, really, until I was in non-diverse situations. And that's what was more the shock for us, to be in places that required a lot of sameness. And that's what was more surprising for us, is the experience of rigid sameness.
What's your earliest kind of standout memory of that feeling and that experience of the rigid sameness?
What a good question. I think it was feeling like probably in first grade, like I could tell that I was different. And we were living in Honduras. And although Honduras is probably my second country, like I really, really grew up there, and I have uncles and aunties and cousins from Honduras, and I love my people from Honduras. And this wasn't anything they were doing. It was me knowing and experiencing this feeling that I was the foreigner, the international girl, the American girl, the girl that came from, my parents were not Honduran, American and Colombian, that mix, because we were with other Americans sometimes where we had to find each other on the weekends. I came from a background of living with people from all different countries because we were expats, basically living in another country. So there was this feeling of something is different. I am different, which is not unique to me. We
Right.
all have that experience, right? Which is part of what the book talks about, is this idea that we're all the same, and yet we all had these experiences of feeling really different as well.
And like that's actually a core piece of our sameness, is that feeling of isolation or aloneness, or like I feel different. Like we share in that, in our diversity and humanity as well.
Yes. And I feel like part of the journey of well-being, of healing, of where we are today, of what the book is about, and we can track it with our individual story, right, Kayleigh, which is this idea that the individual is the collective is the individual, that we know that we are in the more healed part of the spectrum when we start to befriend our differences inside ourselves, our uniqueness. I am different. I am unique. I'm coming out of the closet about how I'm different, about how I am unique, because I've also befriended the ways that we are the same, the same. So I think, you know me, that I love to track, and I love to track healing, and I love to track prowess, and I love to track where we're rising out of our trauma, rising out of our pain, by knowing when we are befriending the shadow, basically befriending our fears, um, befriending what we thought would keep us separate from others.
Mm. I love that. I mean, that's a word that hasn't come up yet today, this idea of befriending, and befriending, of course, starting within and all aspects of ourselves. So we can offer and extend that to everyone else once we can really see that and do that within. And I want to stay on this. You use the word a priori here, and you share it in your chapter. You reference Immanuel Kant, and talk to us a little bit of like what you mean by seeing ourselves as a priori.
Don't you love that?
I love that.
Right?
I do love that word. I'm like, say it more. A priori, a priori.
I know, I'm in love with a priori. Let's give it to people. A priori, it's just so, I remember here, for example, that was another like chakra light up for me, where I heard the word a priori and I just felt like, I understand this word. I know this word. I get this word. And again, it's the idea of coming home. It's the idea of coming home to our foundational, our non-trauma selves. A priori means, who are we in the context of just our innate, organic, primal selves before all the layers begin. And we're not saying that the layers are wrong, right? They're part of the human journey. Even when it comes to trauma, I'm a trauma survivor myself. It's just that idea of, who were we before we went identity shopping or identity introjecting, just taking identity in from other people. Who were we? And what I find beautiful in the healing journey is that we get to go all the way here and come back to a priori, come home to self and heal. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that describe a priori?
I love the way that you're expressing it here. And of course, the visual too, and hearing your voice, all of your human tech, and laying that out for us, and like feeling the power behind it. And I think, so many of our conversations today have been about those of us in this book as part of the process, like reflecting and noticing where we have introjected, where we have taken on things that weren't ours, where we have needed to really be more conscious about, wait, how do I come back home to me before all of the other stuff?
Yes.
And I love the way that that is just so that is coming out in today's conversation too.
Right. Right. It's so beautiful. I love it.
You share so much of your personal experience, in your chapter. And I encourage everyone, like, read Claudia's chapter, Diversity 101, A Colorful Journey Home. But you also sort of speak to what's happening in the collective right now and this current moment that we find ourselves in, and why this conversation is so important, why spaces like this are so important. Like, how would you categorize or just describe what you see happening on the planet right now?
Well, I actually really feel that working with you and working with the co-authors, we're merging because of that resonance, because all of us are feeling that who we are, that we're wanting to choose to be people who are helping recreate or redesign or come back to our planet. I think each of us has had an individual journey for sure. I certainly have in my own self-healing, right? And part of what I amassed while I was self-healing and self-learning and self-reflecting and self-exploring became my career, which is being a psychotherapist, and then helping others do that, partnering with people in that journey one-on-one with folks, helping them finding their way back home to self, to a priori, to who they are, to choice, walking back home to choice. But Kayleigh, very similar to you, which is why you and I have been so aligned. Of course, something happened during the pandemic that I think most of us felt, something explosive, alive, where what the planet was has begun to crumble, systems that just need to reformat, find a new way. And we're in this incredible moment to help or to assist or to be a part of, that's better, to co-create. I like that better than help, to co-create this new world after the pandemic. And all of us are feeling. So my mission has become bigger, which is what dynamic re-evolution is. It's sort of more planetary. And it fits soul excellence, fits soul excellence for sure.
How do you see co-creation as a space, resonance as a space, of course, this work as together as like a way that we're kind of navigating this time, like as things are falling apart? But what advice would you have to offer, for individuals who are noticing this too, who are feeling this too, of like, where do we go from here? If we're just waking up to the fact that like things are not going to be the same, where does one go?
Yes, yes. Well, first, pause. Yes, Kayleigh, you and I've talked about this.
Slow down.
Yes, the sacred pause. What I tell my folks is in times of turbulence, because it's super turbulent, it's super wobbly, but so is moving from one house to another. So is moving from being a teenager to an adult. So is when your parents divorce. The human journey has moments of really intense wobble. And in those wobbles, what I call the gap, in those gaps, what we choose to do in the gap, and we are in a gap, we are in a gap, we are in overlapping stories from what the planet was to what it's shifting to be. So the first thing I would say is sit down. Sit down as we're shifting levels. That's all that's happening. And it's like when an airplane goes up, when it goes through the cloud, it moves and then it levels off. We're just in that place of identity. Who are we? What are our labels? Who are we going to be? So pause. And we need skills. We need meditation. We need therapy. We need healing. We need good friends. We need places like this, a table to talk about it, right? But the first step is to go inside and understand we're in a massive wobble. We're in a massive wobble, and that's normal. That's normal. I think what happens is we start to panic and we start to run around and we have all these opinions without sitting back in the self. And for folks who believe in the invisible or in the quantum field or in God or in a higher power, angelic frequencies, however you want to call it, that's helpful too, is to know that there's a bigger divine spiritual picture going on.
I haven't heard these metaphors actually that you shared here before, like in our conversations, and they're just providing so much clarity and like, oh, right. It's just like moving to a new house. It's just like that transition from teenager to adult. It's just like actually things that like, I want to say we're really good at, but we experience many times over. And each time that we do it, we get the opportunity to like make that transition with more awareness, with more grace, with more preference. And also the plane metaphor is so beautiful of like, yeah, we just got to break through and like things will level off. So it's also that faith and confidence. And like, although we're creating a new earth, that like by the way by which we're doing it, which is going through a rocky phase of turbulence, and then like that part actually isn't that new. And so we can have some like safety and calmness once we recognize that.
Sure, exactly.
I'm actually doing that for all the transition in my life right now. It's like, okay, yep. Okay, we can do this. Got it.
Yes, I was talking to someone the other day and I said, it just feels like there's no parents in the house and there's a lot of ruckus teenagers going around trying to find themselves. So she laughed too. She was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it. So we just need to find like some secure parenting, like just some loving, stabilizing, some boundaries in the home, secure parenting in this planet Earth home. Everything, I guess, gosh, the metaphor of home is really with us today, but just let's bring some secure parenting. And one of the ways to bring secure parenting back is by calming the self first, by realizing, oh, there can be peace inside of me. And I understand that this is part of what's happening is this planetary wobble that we're experiencing.
Now, I know no one in our book likes labels, but one of the terms you do identify with or have created, I should say, is colorful person. Talk to us about the meaning.
Yes.
Like, I love it so much. Share more. Tell us more.
I am a colorful person. Well, I think, again, this idea of living as a global citizen, and then coming, when I moved to the United States, which was in the 8th grade, we had 2 years here. And I had this memory today of moving to just an American middle school. And it was the first time we had ever been in the United States to live. And going to a dance by myself in 8th grade, and feeling really nervous at 14 and feeling fully Latina. I was wearing tight jeans and heels and makeup, like really Latina. And no one was dancing except for a group of African-American kids who were completely decked out like I was, fashion, who were dancing with each other, and I went and joined them. And we grooved because I danced, because they were all dressed, and all of that resonated with me. Yeah. So I wasn't really thinking about what resonated was that colorfulness, that dancing, that fashion, I was like, oh, this is where I fit. So I was having that memory, and it's come up over the years. So I was watching this movie, Bollywood movie, and I just saw the colors of what they were wearing and how they were dancing and how they greeted each other. The bows to the elderly people, the kisses to the mothers, the saying hello to all the aunties, all those things, right? And I find myself resonating with people from India and resonating with African Americans here, and obviously resonating with people from my own country, resonating with Italians and I realized, oh, we're a colorful people. We are colorful humans. And even though I had accepted being labeled a person of color, it didn't always match.
Yeah.
But being a colorful person, I don't know if you feel it, Kayleigh, but it softens it, it brightens it, and it actually includes so many more people when we describe ourselves as colorful. And I think the importance in the book, I really marked this importance of, it's really shocking to me that we love, adore, respect, honor color everywhere, in sunsets, in animals, in insects, in fashion. We love color. Humans love color, right? Except for when it comes to humans. So I want to propose that. I want to invite people to see ourselves as a colorful people, and that includes way more than just color.
It's full spectrum, it's full chakra alignment, it's full light up, it's allowing for the full diversity in humanity. And just the phrase colorful, like it feels so fun, it feels so alive, it's so vibrant. Absolutely. And like you said, it's the most inclusive term I've heard for like, who are we just as humans? And I feel like there's an energy when you feel like you can celebrate and own your individuality, that like you get to shine your color. So that's kind of what happens. It's like, once you own this and you feel this, then you get to shine more, then you get to see your color more, then we get to celebrate that more. But when we're all living in fear or feeling muted or judging ourselves, it's like the colors just draining away.
Yes, Kayleigh, yes, that's exactly it. And color might include that you want to burst into dance. Color might include that's why the red carpet, we're all fascinated, right? People are showing up in full color. It just means so much to be able to show up as a human, a colorful human, with our beat, our rhythm, our sensuality, our vibrance. So yes, I invite people.
I know we're almost at time, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to tell us more. I mean, I encourage everyone to read your chapter in this book and feel into your resonance, but tell us more about the other book that you're working on, Humanity 101. What's it about? When can we expect it? Can't wait to hear more about Humanity 101.
Thank you. And I guess I'm on like a streak of coming back to a priori, because Humanity 101 has that. And it's so much about care, human care for each other, because it's actually an evolutionary trait that has kept us alive. And it's about a handbook. It's like instructions on how to remember things that are so basic in humanity that have helped us. And I tell the story of being, my first chapter is about being on a plane, and I had a plane phobia, and I'm crying and I'm sweating and I'm feeling nauseous and it's embarrassing, and the people next to me don't know what to do with me. And someone just offers me their hand. and I take their hand. And that is Humanity 101.
Mm.
There's these very free, beautiful ways that we're human. And I want to talk about it, Kayleigh. I want to talk about the ways that we can go back a priori to our like beautiful ingredients of our human nature. And so it's both instructions and storytelling, of course, to bring our Humanity 101 alive. And because I got distracted by this book with Soul Excellence, I've been working on the other one and I'm getting back to it. And I'm hoping to have it out by the end of this year for sure. For sure. Thank you.
Can't wait to read it. I mean, as you describe it, is like, I think we actually do need a handbook to come back to care. Like we have forgotten, we need these reminders. Today, we've talked so much about family, about lineage. You bring up the simple physical touch of a handhold in that time. And I think we can all sense that as we like boldly strike out into the future, so many of us are yearning and saying, wait a second, let's not lose these things from the past that have made us feel connected and human and alive and caring. Like, how do we invigorate that and keep that alive? And so with this book of stories and tools, because we know you're all about tools and giving us practices, like this is so needed in the world. And yeah.
And I would add, Kayleigh, it's kept us alive as a species.
Yeah.
People wanting to be healers, people wanting to be even warriors, protecting their clan. Care is a human evolutionary trait that has kept us alive. It helps people when they're refugees, when they're exiled from their countries. Like our human characteristic of caring has built hospitals, has built orphanages. Caring has kept us alive. And we can use it to keep us vibrantly alive. Yes.
And of course, if we lose that, then I think what you're saying is we no longer are alive. We do run out the extinction program. Like without care has kept us alive. And how do we continue to cultivate it for it to, it's like we have to, well, I don't know, just this whole topic of care that you talk about, like I'm so into, I want to learn more about, like, because it's something that it's like we know the importance and we just forget, and we need these reminders, and it is what's going to propel us as a species in the future.
And this is a time to care about what's happening in the planet, to care. This is a time for us to really care. For sure.
Well, I care deeply about you and our friendship, and I care that you took the time to share your story in this book, to join us today at the summit, to share so vividly. I mean, on top of everything, it's like I knew a lot about you going into this experience, but I don't think I knew like just what an incredible storyteller and writer that you were as well. And so always learning new things. And I just want to say thank you for co-creating with me, for co-creating with all of us, for being on this journey, this colorful journey home, which I do feel like that's what this experience has been for so many of us. And so thank you, Claudia. Thank you. Thank you.
You, Kayleigh, and thank you, co-authors. Thank you, co-authors. Yes.
And thank you all for joining us, for catching us on the replay. If you share comments on the replay, we can respond. Charles, we appreciate your support. We love you and all of our empath leaders who are watching. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you at the top of the hour, where you'll get to connect with our special guest, James Jackson, founder of the Utah Black Chamber. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye.